Yes!
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of The Completionist. I am so glad to be back in my office, with no construction, right here with you guys today to launch our themed month that we do in the month of February. Last year we had Superhero Month, the year before that we had Month of Sequels to the Prequels, and then we had Month of Sequels and Month of Love and blah 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 blah. This month, however, we are doing Disappointing Games Month. That's right, we're going to be playing a lot of games that, by most standards, are bad. I'm going to use the nice word disappointing. You take that with what you will. With that said, let's start off the first game of the month, and that is Sonic and the Secret Rings for the Nintendo Wii. Is it time for another Sonic game already? At this point, I am well aware that I'm gonna get burned every time I dip into this pool, but I just can't seem to stop myself. I mean, what can I say? At heart, I am still a Sonic fan, and the shining ray of hope that is Sonic Mania is getting closer and closer. Plus, I've already played Sonic Boom. I am now impervious to pain. Believe it or not, Sonic and the Secret Rings wasn't even supposed to exist at first. Sega actually wanted their first Sonic game on the then new and exciting Wii console to be a port of Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. But porting it would have taken way too long, so they decided to build a new game from the ground up. I guess they really dodged a bullet there, didn't they? From the get-go, Secret Rings was designed with the Wii Motion's technology in mind, but you have to understand that this was very early in the Wii's life cycle. No one was yet fully aware of the Pandora's box that was Waggle technology. Used properly, it can kind of be fun. But when done wrong, Waggle tech can ruin games, shatter friendships, and mar childhoods. Sega clearly was not ready to wield that kind of power, and Secret Rings was the evidence of that. Despite its lofty goals of going back to Sonic's basics and its respectable visuals, Secret Rings received middling reviews due to its awful camera and crippling controls. Now, don't be fooled by the fact that this game technically got a sequel in Sonic and the Black Knight. No one liked that game either. That's a fight for another day. And to add insult to injury, Sega actually delisted Secret Rings and all other Sonic games that failed to reach a minimum Metacritic score back in 2010. They were apparently attempting to maintain the value of their brand. But we see you, Sega. We know what you've done, and we'll never forget! That being said, Secret Rings should be a swell time. Completing this game won't be as simple as beating it a few times and calling it a day. Secret Rings has its own in-game achievements list called awards that you get for accomplishing tasks and performing feats that are about as demanding as legitimate achievements and trophies. Some of these awards are rather benign, such as beating a particular boss and using one of Sonic's skills 50 times. But others will undoubtedly tack on several extra hours of playtime, like getting Sonic to level 99 or playing for a total of 24 hours. Now that last one doesn't seem that bad, but playing this game for 24 hours makes me want to puke! But you know, aren't we lucky? Secret Rings also contains a slew of Wiimote-centered minigames known as Party Mode, which is about as blatant of a Mario Party ripoff as you can get. And I've played Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. There are plenty of awards tied to Party Mode, making these minigames unavoidable, like the lima beans on your dinner plate. Okay, I just can't ignore them. I'm just gonna have to try and save them for last, shove them all into my mouth before my tongue knows what's going on, and wash it all down with some Snapple. This is what being an adult is all about, folks. Tricking yourself into doing work. It'll happen to you too, kids. Everybody had their favorite bedtime stories growing up, right? Well, Sonic and the Secret Rings is like a bedtime storybook, but if your mom or dad pulled it off the shelf to read to you, you'd politely tell them to get that bullshit out of your face. It's got some nice visuals and a pretty decent soundtrack, but its story is savagely mediocre. Things kick off with Sonic taking a nap in front of a cozy-looking fireplace that I guess he owns? Wait, is this supposed to be Sonic's house? Does Sonic own a house? Is Sonic homeless? Nope, there's no time. That train of thought will never end. When Sonic wakes up, he reaches out for his alarm clock, but accidentally grabs the mystical ring that he apparently had no idea was on his table. Upon touching the ring, a genie named Shara is released. She claims that her storybook world of the Arabian Nights is slowly being erased by another, bigger, badder genie named Eraser Jin. Yes, that's actually his name. Eraser's been using his immense power to slowly escape from the book and cross over into the real world. And if he's fully released, he'll not only destroy all the stories within the book, he'll also unleash hordes of evil spirits and monsters into the real world. What a dick. Shara implores Sonic to help, and since he's got nothing better to do, he and his new genie pal leap into the pages of Arabian Nights like Blue's Clues. But soon after arriving, they run into Eraser himself. He drops a bit of exposition, explaining that he's after the 7 powerful artifacts known as World Rings. And when Eraser fires a burning arrow right at Shara's heart, Sonic heroically, or stupidly, depending on how you feel about it, takes the shot for her. Lodged deep into his chest, the arrow is slowly making Sonic's soul burn slow, and when it extinguishes, Sonic's gonna kick the bucket. But Eraser promises to remove the curse if Sonic tracks down and retrieves all 7 world rings. With that, Sonic sets out to gather the rings, take down Eraser, and somehow save both the real world and the world of Arabian Nights. So there's nothing inherently bad about Secret Rings' premise. The story is perfectly average. It's just that the entire story could function just as well, even if it had nothing to do with Sonic. In a completely unnecessary move, many of the story's key players are replaced with members of Sonic's regular cast of characters. But Tails isn't Tails, he's Alibaba. And Knuckles isn't Knuckles, he's Sinbad. It's not like these are actually Sonic's pals and they're just acting or something. They're completely different people who don't know Sonic at all, which means that I don't care about them at all. It's just a cheap way to shoehorn in familiar faces into a story that has nothing to do with them. It's truly unfortunate that Secret Rings features so many settings and characters that I honestly couldn't give a crap about. You just know that none of these characters will ever show up again. And you know that Sonic won't grow or change at all as a character. Sonic will end up saving the day and move on to the next adventure, never mentioning these events again. It somehow ends up feeling like Sonic the Hedgehog filler. I didn't even know that was possible. But that being said, the storybook motif is actually a nice touch. Almost all of the game's cutscenes are told in the picture book style, and if I've got to look at the cutscenes, they may as well be somewhat unique. The themes of the Arabian Nights also permeate pretty much throughout the entire game, from the stages to the enemies to even the music. And that kind of non-gameplay stuff is where Secret Ring shines brightest. The visuals are easy on the eyes, and the soundtrack is pretty damn good, even though it does have a bit of a dual identity. Half the time, the music is Arabian themed, and the rest of the time, it's the kind of metal that's become associated with modern Sonic. But the music is at its best when the two styles are blended together, creating tracks that are truly unique. Now, this is the kind of stuff I can't get enough of, and I think it's safe to say that the Secret Rings' soundtrack is by far the game's best feature. Good job. But the soundtrack isn't always unique. The song 7 Rings in Hand would be just fine if it weren't played after every single mission. You hear it so often while playing that you begin to dread turning on the console. It bores its way into your mind. Even right now, I can still hear the same 4 seconds repeated endlessly. Someone make it stop. And for God's sakes, if you're going to get a band to do the theme song for the game, get the one that's been doing it for the past 3 or 4. Crush 40 is great. Their rendition of 7 Rings in Hand is even better than this one. The storybook that is Secret Rings has got some pretty illustrations and a nice cover, but the actual story inside is nothing to write home about, and its poor narrative doesn't even come close to the worst aspects of the game. At least the soundtrack is tight. Can we hear some of it right now? God damn it, I should have known better. I should have been more specific. I deserve this. Play anything that's not Seven Rings in Hand. Please, anything. Thank you. Even after the many hours I've spent with it, I still feel like I haven't really played Sonic and the Secret Rings. This whole time, it's felt like I've been playing some horrible minigame, or like someone changed my controls to alternative mode without telling me, and now I can't figure out how to change it back. But this isn't a minigame. This is the game. And these motion controls are not optional. They're all we've got going on. At its core, Secret Rings is a glorified endless runner. Sonic moves along an automatic rail, and it's up to you to collect the stuff you want, avoid the stuff you don't want, and defeat any enemies in your way. Your ultimate goal is to either reach the finish line in one piece or fulfill that mission's specific requirements. I know that all sounds simple, but even the most straightforward tasks are turned into an utter shit show. When the game first instructed me to hold the remote horizontally like a traditional controller, a faint glimmer of hope was ignited in my soul. But that hope was instantly stomped out by the unrelenting combat boots of reality. In order to make Sonic move to either side, you have to tilt the Wiimote to the left or right. And yes, it's just as janky and unresponsive as you'd expect. Oftentimes, you'll swear that you tilted the controller enough to avoid that pillar. But no, I guess not. You want to perform Sonic's patented homing attack? Then you're gonna have to jerk that Wiimote forward in an unnatural and goofy fashion. On top of that, you can't even manually select what you're targeting with the homing attack. Since we're not using the D-pad to move Sonic, you'd think we'd be able to use it for targeting. But no, let's just have Sonic go wherever the hell he wants to. And let's not forget all of the level-specific mechanics that also require you to convulse while playing. Swinging, jumping, catapulting, none of them show up that often, and each one of them could have provided some much-needed oases of traditional control. But no, gotta push that waggle tech. The controls weren't the only gimmick that Sega tried to force into Secret Rings. This game also has a few RPG elements to it, complete with experience points and leveling up. You gain experience by collecting items, beating bad guys, and generally performing well during missions. If you collect enough, you will level up, earning more abilities for Sonic. Now, what kind of abilities? Well, in this game, they're referred to as skills, and there are a buttload of them. These skills behave like little equipable buffs that you can combine in different ways to make Sonic play slightly differently. While some skills give Sonic drastically dynamic abilities, others are predominantly passive in nature and their effects are only somewhat noticeable. These include skills that increase Sonic's top speed, ones that let him dodge left and right faster, and ones that increase the range of his homing attack. But two of the more extreme skills are Sonic's speed break and Sonic's time break. The speed break is a massive burst of hyperspeed, whereas the time break slows down time, allowing Sonic to more easily navigate around hazards. Both of these techniques are governed by Sonic's soul gauge, which is basically his super meter. These moves may sound cool, but there's a big problem. Neither of these skills is any fun to use. It may seem like a blast to tap into the Speed Force with Sonic, but it turns out that he's totally vulnerable to all damage during the speed break, meaning that you'll probably run right into any threats along your way. This skill is basically rendered counterproductive unless you're on a very clear straightaway. And the time break, while useful, just is not fun. Whoever suggested a mechanic that drastically slows things down in a Sonic the Hedgehog game has got some stones, man. Even the game's level structure is baffling. There are 7 worlds to play through, with each containing several short missions. But each time you complete one, you're forced back to the mission select screen, regardless of how short that mission was. And let me tell you, some of them are really short. I understand the developers' intent to compartmentalize the various objectives they designed for the player, but they didn't have to go to these extremes. They could have tied several of these mini-missions together into a handful of bigger missions, drastically reducing the amount of time spent loading into and out of levels, and the time spent listening to that goddamn song again! Aside from the usual rings, there are a couple of other collectibles in Secret Rings. There's pearls, which are common items that refill Sonic's soul gauge, and then there are the Fire Souls, which are hidden relics that are found in most missions. Most of them are easily obtainable, but some of them can be kind of hard to reach. All of the game's enemies are variations of the same theme of dark genie spirit thing. Unfortunately, they don't offer much of a challenge and they don't offer much gameplay variety either. Most of them just float in midair, acting more as platform aids than enemies. And when you do interact with them, all they really end up doing is slow down the momentum even more. Some of those bad guys do have more involved mechanics, such as the bosses, but even during those fights, the game's focus is never really on combat. Fighting seems like an afterthought here, as opposed to a secondary feature. I mean, all of the boss fights can be summed up with avoid their attacks until you're close enough to do a homing attack, wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat. A bit too brain dead for my tastes. But I'll tell you what isn't brain dead, getting gold medals on every mission. That's right, this game grades you based on how fast you complete levels, which for completionists turns the entire game into a series of time trials. And some of these missions are downright crushing with their criteria for gold. Some medals are virtually impossible to obtain unless you've equipped some of Sonic's more powerful speed boosting skills. And despite their lack of fun factor, time break and speed break are often crucial to shaving off the seconds necessary to beat the clock. Once again, there was no way around replaying missions over and over until I had the muscle memory needed to simply get good at them all. And let's not forget that Secret Rings is technically an RPG, which means that there are levels to reach, 99 of them to be exact. And even after beating the game and earning all of the gold medals, I still had plenty of grinding to do. Just imagine replaying the same experience-rich stages over and over and over until Sonic is incapable of growing anymore. He might just be at that point, you guys. But I hope that Sonic Mania proves me wrong. I am with you, Sonic. I was from the beginning. I'm here now. I have faith and drive and belief in you. And after all of that, after all of the hard work of finishing Sonic's Adventure Mode, waiting for me was Party Mode. You guys know the deal. You and up to 3 of your friends shake, rattle, and roll your way through dozens of uninspired minigames. Now, full disclosure, these minigames aren't bad, but they're not great either. At least when you open up Party Mode, you know that you're in for a waggle fest. If you're bored, morbidly curious, and happen to have some compliant buddies around, then Party Mode might just be the most fun thing about Sonic and the Secret Rings. And after searching very hard, I can't say that there's much to enjoy about playing Sonic and the Secret Rings. And that's the most disappointing thing about the game. Even the most terrible games have something entertaining about them or something noteworthy, but not Secret Rings. Here, there's nothing but a wasteland of mediocrity. And it's not like things weren't salvageable with this game. They could have included the actual characters that we know and love, instead of facsimiles. They could have focused on having mechanics and a UI that maintained momentum instead of constantly interrupting the action. And while it's too much to wish for them to have completely dropped the motion controls, they could have let the game cook for a bit longer before releasing it. Maybe then the waggle tech would have felt better, or at least been bearable outside of the party mode. Dear God, the party mode really was the best part. These might be the end of times, you guys. There's a little bit of a silver lining when it comes to completing Sonic and the Secret Rings. As you've been racing, collecting, and grinding away, you've also been unlocking quite a lot of bonus material, and it's all kept track of in the handy-dandy special book. It's like a gallery where you can view all of your spoils of war, including concept art, music, and cutscenes. All of those Fire Soul you've been collecting also happen to unlock some bonuses in party mode. The more you gather, the more hidden characters you unlock for use in party mode, such as Blaze the Cat, Cream the Rabbit, and both Shadow and Silver the Hedgehogs. Those same Fire Souls will also gradually unlock even more minigames for you to trick your friends into playing. Even Secret Rings' signature brand of achievements, known as awards, are accounted for in the secret book. Oh, and it also lets you know how many times you've run into Big the Cat. Yeah, I forgot to mention that Big the Cat's in this game too. And I don't mean he's making a cameo as a character from the Arabian Nights. He's just Big the Cat. You can run into him in 15 specific missions, but he's pretty well hidden, so hunting him down with a guide is recommended over trying to find his big ass on your own. If you manage to find him all 15 times, all of the pages of his travel diary will be filled out in your special book, allowing you to read all about his fishing and his obsession over Froggy and the sad fact that he should never be allowed out of the house by himself. So what does filling up your entire special book get you? Not a damn thing, but at least it feels good to know that as you play, you are unlocking things along the way. It would just be nice if the game acknowledged you for going the distance. I wouldn't even be that sore about it if Secret Rings hadn't thrown time trials and level grinding at me. Now, instead of walking away from yet another disappointing modern-era Sonic game, I'm actually resenting Secret Rings. God damn, and things just... they could have been so simple, you guys. They could have been so simple. While completing Sonic and the Secret Rings, there were 78 deaths, 32 hours of total playtime, 126 Fire Souls found, 110 golden medals earned, 225 pages unlocked in the special book, 99 levels reached with Sonic, and 1 copy of the single 7 Rings in Hand ordered off of Amazon so I can personally burn it in effigy. Guys, I have been a personal positive beacon of Sonic and its community for many years. And as much as I love Sonic, it's hard for me to even recommend trying this game. Even for novelty's sake, just getting through the basics in earlier missions is a slog thanks to the terrible controls. And if you're still thinking about completing it, only do it if you've got a lot of money riding on it. Like no less than a few grand. Only a fool would complete this game for free. Wait. Fuck. I genuinely don't know what makes me more mad. The fact that Sonic 06 was right here and it came out to be a piece of crap. And then in development, they said, you know what, let's go ahead and take some of these teammates here and move them over here to Sonic and the Secret Rings for a Wii launch release window. And that game turned out to be just as bad. Now, at least from a graphical standpoint, the game turned out to be pretty cohesive and okay. From playing the game to really getting down to the innards of it, this game was just a train wreck across the board. The fact that you have no real control over Sonic and you're forced to run straight the entire time with the waggle motion control is very, very upsetting. You should be able to control Sonic, at least at this point in the 3D realm, with the 3D, with the joystick. We have the nunchuck, plug that bad boy in, and now you have Sonic that can move in a full 360 environment. Why make the gamer and the player, whatever you want to call it, just go straight down and miss collectibles and miss things and constantly get hit over and over and over again when you create this luscious world that we want to explore? I cannot say anything more than that without getting actually visibly upset. So, with that in mind, guys, I give this game my completionist rating of donate it.
Donate it!
That's all the time we have for today, guys, so please, as always, let me know about today's episode somewhere on the internet. If you liked today's episode, do me a favor, give me a thumbs up, give me a comment, and you know, I'm actually responding in the comments so I read a lot of the bad things you say about me, Brian. From Wyoming. Thanks, man. You're the best. Appreciate the nice words, bro.
You call him Brian.
Because Brian's a dick, that's why. He has to learn. He can't get away with this shit. I see you, Brian. Be nice, man. I'm watching. Now, if you excuse me, let's go ahead and look at some more glorious multiplayer action. Can you smell that? That's the cooking sensation smells of wonderfully crafted Sega multiplayer.